Shaquille O'Neal was an unstoppable force in the NBA the moment he stepped onto the court. Not only was he named an All-Star as a rookie, but selected as a starter as well. Ro Parrish revisits Shaq's first All-Star appearance back in 1993 in this episode of Storytime with Shaq.
At center is the first rookie to start in an All-Star game since 1985. Standing over 7 feet tall and weighing 300 pounds, he plays well beyond his 20 years. You know him simply as the Shaq. From the Orlando Magic, Shaquille O'Neal.
1993, Utah. Your first All-Star game, making it as a rookie. Number one, what were your first impressions when you get there? Did you expect to make the All-Star game as a rookie?
Well, I expected to make the All-Star game, but I wasn't expecting to be starting. First of all, before I got there, terrified.com.
Why?
Because, I mean, all the guys that I dreamed up, dreamed of being, guys that I looked up to, I'm finally there with them. There was one moment at the All-Star game that kind of made me relax a little bit. We were doing the team picture, and the guy puts his hand on my shoulder, and I looked down, some big hands. I'm like, who is this? And I looked up, and it was the great Michael Jordan. And he said, I'm proud of you, big fella. You're going to be a great player. So once he said that, the steam just like, but after that, I kind of learned how to be an all-star performer because it's different. And, it's kind of similar to my thought process of putting on the show for the fans. But at an all-star game, you got to do extra. Come down, cross people up, dribble between the legs, better slam dunks, maybe shoot a three. So after that, I became sort of an all-star expert.
So looking back at all those players that you spoke about that you were in awe of, you had that Michael Jordan moment, but talk about Pippen, Isaiah, Malone, Stockton, Barkley, Robinson. Are you able to take all that in at that moment? Do you realize how much greatness you're around when you see all those players out there with you?
It was just solidifying the beginning of my greatness. Because when you come in as a rookie and everybody says you're great, and then I made the top 50 team, a lot of people was upset about that. So in my mind, I had to back it up. So by me getting selected to the All-Star game, that was sort of backing it up. I had to put up big numbers, sort of backing it up. But, I was just saying to myself when I was sitting in the locker room, damn, I made it. Medium-level juvenile delinquent who didn't start his freshman or sophomore year, 35-1, San Antonio Cole High School, lose the state championship on free throw line, redeemed myself senior year, 36-0, 3 years at LSU, #1 pick. Everyone says you're the next greatest thing. Maybe this is the start of me being what everybody says I can be. When you're just sitting there watching, you just automatically put yourself in those scenarios, and I used to do it all the time. And then finally, look up, and I see the real Charles Barkley walk by. I see the real John Stockton, the real Karl Malone, the guy who I grew up watching, the Admiral, David Robinson, Pat Riley with his $6,000 suit and his silky tie and the beautiful hair. Like, I'm sitting next to all these people, so maybe what everybody is saying that this young kid will be a great player, maybe it's true.
The 2019 All-Star starters will be revealed tomorrow night on TNT at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. You both were part of the esteemed media panel.
I don't know about esteemed. Yeah.
Calling it esteemed media panel that represents 25% of the total ballot when it comes to the starters. So you both had to submit Eastern Conference starting five and a Western Conference starting five. Your Eastern Conference starters are pretty similar. Both include Kyrie Irving, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, and Joel Embiid. They are identical except for what I'm going to call the second guard spot. Kemba Walker for Greg. Seika, you've got Bradley Beal. This being a TV segment, you're now obliged to argue about it.
I mean, listen, I think both those guys are worthy. I just looked at and weighed heavier the work Bradley Beal has done since John Wall went down. A Wizards team, GA, that was out of it, out of people's consciousness. We had kind of written them off. John Wall goes down, Bradley Beal is playing fantastic. I think he should be an all-star either way.
Yeah.
He could be a starter. You could have him be one of the reserves. It doesn't matter. As long as he's on that team, I think you're doing right by him.
Yeah, and I agree. I think both are going to make the team. I went with Kemba. One, he's been great from the start of the season, and two, as of today, they're a playoff team.
Right.
And so to me, I do think, because their stats are actually very similar, but I just think, ultimately you want to reward success too in winning. So that's why for me, I ended up going with Kemba. But I'm like you, Sekou. I think both guys are all-stars with how well they performed this season under adverse conditions for both teams.
I actually put Ben Simmons on my ballot, and I think you could make an argument for
Yes,
three of those guys.
I think he'll be there too.
If you're rewarding winning, Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
So the winning argument, that's kind of where I felt.
No question.
In the Western Conference, again, you agree on 4 of them. Steph Curry, James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Paul George. Greg has the Kings. Sekou went with the Browns.
Yeah, I just looked at the fact, again, it goes back to before LeBron went down, they were a 4 seed. With that same team, in essence, that we saw from a season ago, and his numbers had been off the charts again. And in Anthony Davis, as much as I love him, again, he's going to be an all-star. I just thought overall the fact that the team success just hasn't been there. That was the one area where I had an issue. And the interesting thing for me, the guy that probably is more deserving based on team success is Jokic.
Yeah.
Because Jokic has been incredible this year. So, again, he's definitely going to be on the team.
For sure.
But I think, again, part of this is who do you want to see as well when you talk about the starters. And so I ultimately went with LeBron.
Yeah, and if Anthony Davis was any less of an unbelievable, freak of nature in this league, it would be easier to leave him off somebody like this. I just figured when you look at his body of work, independent of the context of the Pelicans' struggles this season, he's always up here on that next level of the handful of guys in the league who can do what he does on a regular basis. Hard to leave him off, but of course, people will say, well, why are you penalizing LeBron for missing games when you didn't penalize Steph Curry for the same thing?
Yeah, why are you doing that?
So there is a part of me that kind of scratches my head and says, do you knock LeBron for being out? Is it a recency bias because he's been out lately? Because nobody's going to have a Western Conference All-Star starting 5 without LeBron James. It wouldn't make sense. But of course, I went.
Except for you.
Except you did. And yet you did it anyway.
I know,
didn't you?
I figured somebody had to shake.
There you go.
I'm with you on AD though. I mean, some guys, the numbers, the talent is just so overwhelming. You almost overlook.
Shout out to Paul George though for playing his way onto that list.
Man,
he's been awfully good this year for the Thunder. I vote on @NBA TV until noon on Friday. No, not yet. Give me a chance. I'm here doing the segment now. When do you want me to vote?
My bad.
I don't have a device on me. Give me a chance.
You don't have your phone. I'm sorry.
No. After the segment, I'll go and vote. Who you got?
This is difficult because I think you run into the argument of what defines athleticism. Is it explosive, get off the floor, ability?
We're here to overthink this.
Exactly. So we're going to take this to the deep end of the pool here. Right. But I got to be honest with you. As explosive as Russ is and as marvelous as LeBron's athleticism has been for so long, Giannis is the largest guy in this category in terms of a graceful athlete.
Freakish, you might say.
To me, well, he's been called something like that. But to me, a lot of it is about how efficient are you with the ball underneath you and with the game underneath you in terms of can you get up and down the floor at your size and dominate in all the different ways that he has shown us he can this year. When you're that height, when you're 7 feet tall basically, and 14 feet long from fingertip to fingertip or whatever, that to me connotates a certain type of athleticism that the average man can't muster.
Sure.
Russ, to me, is the most explosive by position in the entire league. If you talk about a guy, a furious athleticism that can overwhelm people. LeBron is probably the most well-rounded, but the best and the one with the highest ceiling in this category to me is Giannis.
I'm going to go with the old head in LeBron. And part of it is most athletic. I've never seen a guy in his 16th season this athletic that can still do the things that he does. And part of being a great athlete is your ability to utilize that athletic ability with your mind. And I don't know that we've ever seen as good a combination of athletic prowess and intellectual understanding and capacity of how to play the game as LeBron. So I would go with him in that category for that. Now, Giannis is freakish, as is Westbrook. But I just think, too, being a great athlete, we're in the business of winning. He's won the most.
That's absolutely true.
I think that does, because you can have all that ability in the world, but if you're not getting to a level where that athletic ability says you should get to, then that, to me, gets discounted a little bit.
Well, to me, that gets into a different category of just great overall players, not just athlete, which is the question.
Well, these are three athletes.
They are three great athletes. To me, of the three at this moment in time, I'm going with Russell Westbrook, who is as freakish as anybody in the league.
Yes,
and when you think of explosion, and that's often what people kind of default to when they think of athleticism, there's just nobody as explosive. That dunk last night at the end of the game against Portland, that was absurd, and you saw people getting out of the way. This guy could have been an NFL safety. He could have been who knows what else.
Maybe a defensive end.
In pro sports, I mean, strong safety.
But to me, that's always been the dilemma about athleticism. Is it,
right, what is that?
Yeah, what does it entail? Like, is the guy who would be the most versatile of these guys? Because I think LeBron clearly could have been a professional in several different
disciplines. Sure, lots of things, yeah.
So you think about that, but man, could you imagine Giannis or Russell Westbrook playing volleyball? Or playing another sport where they could use
I can't go volleyball.
Talents.
There ain't that much money in it. I don't think they would have went
But they could have dominated.
I don't mean just how much money you get.
I'm just teasing.
But, I mean, you think about that, the versatility of your athleticism, and then instinctual athleticism. Like, LeBron, to me, is off the charts when it comes to athletic instincts. I don't remember a guy, maybe since Michael Jordan, being that instinctual with his athleticism in terms of timing and knowing how to, make plays on both ends of the floor all over the court the way LeBron does.
And if you want to include longevity, reliability, he goes into that. I know he's hurt right now, but he goes into that category as well. That's always been one of my arguments for Kareem as the greatest of all time.
Yep.
Guy played into his 40s. He was unbelievable all that time.
There's no question.
And started.
Right, vote on NBA TV. Again, Isaiah and the old school guys will tell you they had him at the top of the scouting report deep into his 30s.
Yeah.
Crunch time coming up at 9 Eastern time. All the big finishes from a big Wednesday night. Take a look at Joel Embiid and try to assess whether you think he's going to play tonight against the San Antonio Spurs. He's been great when he's been out there. 20 or more points in 16 straight games.
Too spectacular against the Rockets the other day.
20 times, 30 and 10 this season for Embiid. Ben Simmons is going to play tonight.
He's pretty good.
I'm saying he's really good. He's just unsure tonight about his availability. Simmons will play. He's dealing with an illness, but he's going to go. And Jimmy Butler will sit out again because of that sore wrist. They take on the San Antonio Spurs, who come in having lost 3 of their last 5. They blew out the Sixers in their first meeting back in San Antonio. What a little more than halfway through the season, what have you seen about the Sixers that you like? What questions would you still like answered?
Well, I mean, look, I think there's still a team that doesn't shoot it as well from the perimeter as you'd like, if you're talking about them being a contender. But Joel Embiid is so good. He was so good against Houston the other day. If you could take a player and ride him in his game through the playoffs, they've got one of the handful of guys to me in the league that if Embiid gets in that bag and really starts playing at a high level in the postseason, I don't know how you'd stop him. I don't know what another team would do to take him away completely to prevent him from being effective.
No doubt about it, other than go look at the blueprint that the Boston Celtics put forth last year. Like, what gets lost in all of this sometimes is because these young, incredibly talented players show us their ceiling, we forget how important experience is in the postseason.
Sure.
And when you play in a regular season, I don't game plan. We just kind of talk about what we want to try and do against you, but we don't drill it. We don't have tendencies. We don't have a book on you, and we're not on the same schedule. When you get in the postseason now, I get an opportunity. I remember playing for Pat Riley my rookie year. After the season, we're getting ready for the playoffs, and the assistant coach brought me a book. And I was like, damn, I didn't know what it was a book of every player, every play they ran that season, every play. So everything they had ever done on that court. So you knew every tendency.
Right.
You knew what they'd go to when things got tight. You knew the plays they were going to run. And so that's why I always say in the postseason, that's why you need great players in the postseason, because great players can score against great defense consistently. And great talents can score, but they need the experience. Now, last year will help him and Ben Simmons because, it showed them as much as we thought and were ready to anoint, they weren't quite ready.
No, end of the game execution was terrible.
It was not very good. And
their
also
shooters couldn't get loose to where they needed.
Right.
And the pressure
That's
of the
when they
moment.
had more shooters.
Yeah, and it was also the pressure of the moment. Because what happens is they'd never been in those situations before, ever.
Right.
They'd never, in their careers, they'd never been in situations where they felt a little unsure, where they weren't, comfortable with who they were as a player at that level, because they'd never had anybody be able to make them do things they didn't want to do. And so that's why that postseason, that experience will help them. But their growth, I think, is coming. The question for me, big picture, is, okay, is the depth going to be there? Because as good as those guys are, you're still going to have guys coming off your bench that can give you quality minutes, that can make big plays, and that's where those veteran guys. Last year, to Sekou's point, they had a better overall roster, even though this one has more top-level talent than they did. To have the Bellinellis and guys like that, and Ilyasova.
And who they got for nothing.
Yeah, those veteran guys that you can trust in big moments to make plays. Not having those guys is a concern.
They'll see Bellinelli tonight for San Antonio. By the way, Joel Embiid will play, we are now told.
Oh, good.
For the
good.
76ers.
I got my league pass already set up.
Because the end of the game execution was a serious issue for them against the Celtics. How much of a difference will Butler make in that he's likely to have the ball in his hands a lot in those late game situations?
It will make it. And listen, in all fairness, Brett Brown's got to take some responsibility too. I remember you and I were working during the regular season last year, and we had a couple times in the game situations where I didn't know what the hell they had tried to draw up and run. It was so, as much as we want to put it on the players, Brett Brown and his staff have to take some responsibility. I don't think they handle in the games. That Celtic game where his team was imploding in the second quarter last year in the postseason, in the game they were up big, he didn't call a timeout. He just basically let it go, and they ended up losing that game in the second quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And again, he's got to be able to help that young group with his ability to give them stuff that they feel confident in when they have to go out and execute.
Let me interrupt for just a second, because Victor Oladipo apparently has